and the Right to Know Right Now Coalition. Pearl?
Yes, and to give you a very short rundown lang of what will happen today, after Joey and I walked you through the program and after namin i-discuss yung konting house rules natin. So magpo-proceed na po tayo agad sa ating discussion proper. So we have invited speakers from the Government Procurement Policy Board, Technical Support Office, and from the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. So after their presentation and a reaction, we will be having an open forum po to accommodate all your questions about procurement. And then right after that, Assistant Secretary Chris Ablan will officially close the program. Joey?
We are very sure that you are all excited na, but please hold on. No? May mga ilang house rules or webinar housekeeping lang po kami nagdi-discuss to make sure na smooth po ang ating webinar for today. So first, please make sure that your microphone or your audio po is turned off. Ang Zoom po ay sound sensitive. Second, as much as you would like to see you virtually, if you are not comfortable turning on your video camera, no pressure po, okay lang po na mag-off po kayo. Third, this webinar is being recorded both in Zoom and Facebook, so you may access the recorded session in FOI Philippines Facebook page. Fourth, just a reminder, no screen sharing po tayo sa Zoom. Ayun. And then fifth, today's session is scheduled to last for 1 hour and 30 minutes, including the question and answer session.
Okay. At para naman po sa ating mechanics during the open forum, if you were able to lodge your queries or questions in advance via the online training management system ni GPPB, which we sent po sa inyong mga email, much better po kasi yun po yung ating unang i-prioritize na questions later. So malinaw po yan sa ating naging instructions. But don't worry, if you are not able to send in your questions in advance, we will still accommodate questions pa rin naman via Zoom. If you're watching via Zoom, please ilagay lang po natin yan sa chat box. And if you're watching via Facebook, sa comment section. So we have colleagues from the FOI PMO and also from the Right to Know Right Now Coalition who will monitor and verify your attendance. E-certificates will be provided to everyone. So kung kayo po ay nanonood sa Facebook, meron po kaming pinost na registration link. So kindly make sure na nandoon po ang inyong pangalan. And also, like our video. Yun po.
Also, please like our official social media pages. Share with us your key takeaways, your comments, or your insight using our hashtags, hashtag InFocusFOIPH and hashtag COVID-19 PH Transparency. Again, this Zoom webinar is also streamed live in different Facebook pages. We have for FOI Philippines at FOI PH and Right to Know Right Now Coalition at R2KRN.
Yeah.
So before we start, let's see kung active at participative ang ating mga participants this afternoon. Pakibigyan naman po kami ng virtual thumbs up reaction kung nanonood kayo via Zoom. Ayan. So we have a lot of thumbs up we are receiving. And comment yes if you are watching via our Facebook. YES. Check natin yan.
Check natin yan.
Yes.
So, okay. I think nakapag-thumbs up naman lahat. We're all good. Now, to keep the momentum running, I will now introduce our first speaker. I'm sure excited na kayo. So, she is the Executive Director of the Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Office. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in political science from De La Salle University, Manila, obtained her Bachelor of Laws degree from San Beda College of Law, Manila, and acquired her Master of Laws degree in Globalization and Development from the University of London, England. From 2009 to 2018, she headed the legal service of the Department of Budget and Management And she's not just known for her expertise in government budgeting, but in government procurement as well, having worked on the Bids and Awards Committee on the Development of Philippine Properties in Japan and the DBM Bids and Awards Committee. In fact, she also recommended to the DBM Secretary decisions on the appeals and protest actions filed against the DBM Procurement Service over the years. And aside from serving as a project procurement consultant of the Asian Development Bank, she is also a highly requested resource speaker and lecturer for various agencies, CSOs, and universities to discuss government procurement. So everyone, let us welcome Attorney Rowena Ruiz.
Thank you, Pearl, for that very generous introduction. Let me share with you the PowerPoint. So just to confirm, are you able to see the PowerPoint right now?
Nasa. O tapos. Hindi ko kasi alam.
Sorry, were you able to see the PowerPoint I earlier shared?
No, ma'am.
Because I'm trying to share it now. Wait.
Yan, ma'am. Yes. Okay na, ma'am.
So thank you for that again, for such a generous introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank FOI Philippines, your partners, Tivos, Southeast Asia, as well as Right to Know Right Now Coalition for giving me this opportunity to be able to paint to you a picture of how government procurement has been since the time of the pandemic. Let me begin with sharing with you also something about how we work. I know some of you have heard of GPPB, but may not know what it is. It's actually the Government Procurement Policy Board. I am the head of the Technical Support Office that provides policy recommendations to the board. It is headed by the Department of Budget and Management Secretary, composed of 12 other members with one private sector representative. So you can readily see that the composition of the board allows for a very varied and multifaceted approach to procurement rules. Kasi marami po tayong mga ahensya na may mga pinoprocure sila that has very, very clear or definite nuance from the other agencies. So this is very important. Now, for you to understand also how we have been working on the procurement policies, I want to share with you the key strategies that we have been implementing over the years. And I want to focus on the 4 ones that has been very important, that has played an important role in the policies that we have since implemented with respect to procurement. Number 1, we need to be proactive. Hindi ho kami mag-iintay ng tanong bago kami sumagot. We have been very proactive in issuing the rules and the guidelines on government procurement. Second, we want to be able to streamline processes. Streamlining is not only important because of efficiency. We want to be able to streamline because we want to be able to empower our procurement practitioners. We want to be able to empower the front lines. Sino ba yung front lines ng procurement? Ito yung mga back members, technical working group, and secretariat. So by streamlining the process, by simplifying it, we are able to give the procurement managers the opportunity to not just do procurement on business as usual. We want them to be able to shift from procurement compliance to procurement management. Number 3, innovate. I think this is the most important strategy that we should all apply in government. Given the limited resources that we have, we need to be able to ensure that we innovate. You don't have to invent the cure for COVID. You need to just innovate even to the simplest things and processes that we have in government. And finally, we need to be able to remain transparent and open. This is a very good measure for public accountability, and at the same time, especially in the current environment that we have, no, we need to know it right now. As the name of one of the partners for this webinar says, no, we need to be able to have easy access to information, and we can never sacrifice transparency and public accountability over expediency. That's why these are all important. Now, let me show to you how we're able to actually implement all of this key strategy when it comes to procurement. So I'm showing to you on the screen the first set of issuances that the board has provided as early as March 9 po. Bago pa ho tayo ma-put under quarantine, nag-issue na po ang ating board ng resolution adopting efficient, effective, and expedient procurement during a state of public health emergency. Okay, bakit po? In-anticipate na ho namin na magkakaroon ng issue on procurement. At hindi lang ho issue, in-anticipate namin na the first thing that we need to do is to be able to procure PPEs, face masks, and all that. So as early as March 9, nag-issue na po tayo ng emergency rules on procurement. Okay? We complemented this with another resolution because at this time we were already under ECQ. So nahihirapan ho tayong makakuha ng some documents. So we issued this resolution so that we will be able to provide alternate documentary requirements. Halimbawa ho, nahirapan ho magkaroon ng notarization ng mga omnibus sworn statements, so we allowed for an unnotarized OSS. And then what's also most important, and I think I need to highlight this, is for the first time, nagkaroon po tayo ng joint issuance with the Commission on Audit. Meron po tayong GPPB COA joint firm the use of emergency procurement during a state of calamity. You might say, why is this important? No? For those in government, alam niyo po bakit ito importante. A colleague of mine from the World Bank once told me that this issuance, the joint issuance, is really important kasi in our country, in our government, hindi lang importante na meron kang rules eh. Importante din that the COA actually agrees with you in using this set of rules. So malaking bagay po. It actually provides confidence, no, to our procuring entities on what rules to follow. One thing also that I have observed, no, during this pandemic is that a lot of our agencies are quite used with public bidding, but not adept with emergency procurement. So they're having difficulty. No, hindi sila sanay, natatakot sila. So this issuance with the COA really helped provide confidence, okay, in their procurement activities. Now, what are the other resolutions? So even before the Bayanihan Act, meron na ho tayong emergency procurement rules na ginagamit. No? But when the Bayanihan Act came about, the board had to issue another resolution to complement this para hindi ho maguluhan ng ating mga procuring entities. So we had the Resolution 06 and Circular number 1 of the GPPB. At the same time, we also have to remember na hindi lang ho COVID-related ang ating binibili sa gobyerno. Okay? At hindi lang ho mga emergency items or materials that would justify the use of emergency procurement. Meron din ho tayong mga regular procurement for other priority projects ng ating mga ahensya. Kaya ho, minabuti ng GPPB to issue Resolution 09-2020. Ito po naman yung mga other measures that can guide the agency in the conduct of efficient procurement during a state of calamity and imposition of community quarantine. The details for this I will discuss later on. But essentially, ito pong mga measures na to, it would answer the issues of paano kami magbaback meeting, paano kami magpo-post call, paano ko walang bidder can I suspend, when can I cancel, what can I do? So these are the measures included in this resolution. And of course, being proactive, for the first time we issued po anticipatory opinions. What are these? No? Regularly or normally, we wait for a query to be posed before we answer in the form of opinions. No? What we did this time around was actually issue anticipatory opinions. We have NPM number 03-2020 and NPM 04-2020, both summarizing the procedure for either emergency procurement under 9184 and the emergency procurement under the Bayanihan Act. And most importantly, we pose possible issues and answer them. So to provide clarifications in advance to government agencies and suppliers para ho, hindi na nila kailangan magtanong sa amin at hindi na nila kailangan maghintay pa ng sagot kasi meron na po tayong mga anticipatory opinions. Okay? And then of course, being proactive, we don't just look at now. We have to think about the future. So we anticipated what would be the new normal. So as early as March, we already allowed for the extension of the submission of the procurement reports. No, marami pong reports na sinasubmit sa atin ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno. Importante po to for proper monitoring as well as transparency. So we knew that the agencies will have to focus on COVID response, so we extended the deadline. At the same time, we mandated exclusive electronic submission of reports. Hindi na ho kami tumatanggap na yun ng mga manual submission of reports. Why? Not only to protect po our clients and also our staff in the office, but also, again, we need to be able to leverage technology para mas mabilis po namin makuha yung reports. At the same time, since this is electronic, we don't have to encode them. We can already use the file that will be submitted to us in Excel format, no? Para ho, yun ang magamit namin in the proper monitoring of the agencies when it comes to procurement. Now, of course, these reforms, these issuances are useless if we're not able to actually disseminate them. So what we did, we actually used IEC materials, no? So you will be able to just Google po ninyo yung mga resolutions I mentioned, and you might actually look at some of the image that I'm flashing right now, no, on the screen. We provided what we call an FAQs quick guide on emergency procurement para ho mas madali naming ma-inform ano ba yung mga procedure involving sa procurement? Because a lot of people find procurement very technical and very difficult. So we wanted to show that it doesn't have to be that difficult. And to help us do this, we recently actually launched our chatbot. So I want to introduce to you Billy Bayong. Siya po yung aming mascot ng GPPB-TSO. So we played the word Billy with Billy, and then we added Bayong for some Filipino touch. And all of this infographic materials that I am showing to you and the resolutions, these are all available on our social media accounts. So meron po kaming Facebook, meron kaming YouTube, at meron kaming Twitter accounts. Okay, now, I earlier mentioned about streamlining procurement. So I'm showing to you gaano po kasimple at ka-streamline ang emergency procurement under RA 9184. So in this infographics, you can see there are 4 easy steps to do it. Okay? Direct negotiation po kasi ang emergency procurement. The same is true with the bayanihan procurement. Meron lang hong konting difference, but when it comes to process and documentary requirements, they are actually the same. Okay? Now, you might then ask, so ano bang kaibahan ng dalawa? No? But before I go to that, let me just emphasize the process for bayanihan procurement, which is similar to emergency procurement in 9184. The first step is always to prepare your project requirements. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Kailangan nyo mag-conduct ng market study. Alamin, ano bang meron sa merkado? Okay? Especially right now, why? There's really a global disruption of the supply chain because of COVID. There's also a spike or increase in the volume of the requirements. No? Kung dati wala tayong binibiling face mask, now bumibili tayo ng milyon-milyon na face mask at PPEs, no? For COVID response. So we need to be able to know magkano ba ang meron ngayon sa merkado. Bakit ho yun importante? Because kailangan meron kang sufficient budget, which is the second step. You know, when we were monitoring the prices of face masks, sometime in January, it was only around 7 pesos. Right now, it's around 20 pesos. So you cannot rely on past market study. You have to be able to check out the current prices. Okay. When you have the budget already available, you can do direct negotiation with suppliers and contractors. Okay. And when you have identified, okay, a supplier who is legally, technically, and financially capable, that is when you may now be able to recommend the award of contract and eventually award the contract. All right. Now, Ano naman ngayon ang difference ng dalawa? Kung ganun lang pala din pala kasimple ang proseso, whether emergency procurement under 9184 or bayanihan procurement, how do you differentiate the two? I will just focus on the two more important difference or variants of the two. Okay, number one, when you talk about bayanihan, this is bayanihan procurement, you talk about ano yung mga bibilin. Why? Because nilimit ho ng Bayanihan Act yung mga items covered ng bayanihan procurement. Okay? Limited lang po yung mga items na to. And these are all provided in your, shown in your screen. Ano-ano itong mga to? These are mostly PPE or medical items and supplies. Okay, goods related to social amelioration measures, lease of property or temporary dormitories for health workers, establishment and construction for the operation of temporary medical facilities, utilities, telecoms, and other critical services, okay, and other ancillary services. Now, what about emergency procurement under 9184? When do you apply it? No? Pagdating naman po sa emergency procurement under 9184, ang ating iisipin at tatanungin ay, ano ba yung mga conditions? Kasi po, any item may be covered by emergency procurement under 9184. All types. Importante lang pong malaman natin, ano yung conditions when you may be able to apply it. Tatlo lang po yan. In case of imminent danger to life or property during a state of calamity, or kahit wala akong declaration ng state of calamity, basta time is of the essence arising from natural or man-made calamities, or other causes for immediate action is necessary to prevent vital public services, infrastructure, facilities, and other public utilities. Okay? So, importante lang po malaman natin are the conditions present bago ho natin i-apply ang emergency procurement under 9184. So, currently, how do we apply it? Kung covered po kayo ng Bayanihan Act, meaning the items, doon po tayo sa Bayanihan Procurement. Kung hindi po, you can use emergency procurement under the under the 9184 law kasi po meron pa rin po tayo state of calamity at present. Now, insofar as the period of application is concerned, limited po ang period of application ng Bayanihan Procurement. It is effective April 12, doon po na-publish ang ating circular for this until the effectivity of the Bayanihan Act. On the other hand, wala pong limit sa application ang ating emergency procurement under 9184. While I would like to note that there's actually a pending bill in Congress that aims to extend the Bayanihan Act up until 31 December 2020, but kung hindi ho siya ma-extend, the moment po na hindi na valid or hindi na effective yung Bayanihan Procurement, as long as the conditions persist, the conditions I earlier mentioned, pwede pa rin ho natin gamitin ng emergency procurement under 9184. Of course, if neither applies, then you can adopt other available modalities like public bidding and other alternative methods of procurement under 9184. Now, let's go to innovative rules. Sabi ko kanina, it's important for us in government, no, with limited resources, for us to actually be able to innovate, no, in the rules that we are implementing when it comes to procurement. Okay, let me just share some of them. Number one, it speaks of pwede ka bang mag-procure kung wala ka pang approved APP under the Bayanihan Procurement? Pwede po, basta meron kang budget for the purpose. So what's the innovation here? Hindi mo kailangan yung APP now, you can just have the APP submitted later on. Bakit po ito importante? Meron po tayong mga ahensya ng gobyerno like GOCCs na umaakyat po sa board ang kanilang APP, which means magtatagal po. Baka masyadong matagal, hindi ho sila agad makaprocure. So as long as may budget, because it is really the main purpose of the APP, pwede ho silang magtuloy. Later na lang ho siya ibibigay or submit. Okay? The other thing, marami po tayong mga documents na ina-approve pa ho ng HOPE or the head of the procuring entity. For LGUs, for instance, ang HOPE po ay si Mayor. You can imagine yung work po ni Mayor right now, going around is for her constituents para ho ma-ensure yung immediate response, no, with respect to the mitigation of COVID. So inalaw po natin ng delegation of authority para hindi na kailangan si HOPE, pwede hong delegate na lang ang mag-approve. Okay? On the other hand, we also have provided, as I mentioned earlier, alternate documentary requirements. Kung wala hong mayor's permit, pwede hong OR lang with the renewal application because we anticipate baka may mga LGUs hindi agad nakapag-issue ng mayor's permit. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, paano kung walang notaryo? Paano kung makapag-submit ng omnibus war statement? Pwede ho munang hindi, no? And more importantly, yung mga documentary requirements for under bayanihan procurement and emergency procurement, pwede nyo siyang isubmit even afterward, basta bago ang payment. So we are adjusting because of the situation we have right now. Required security under the bayanihan procurement. Baka ho sabihin niyo, so paano yun? Paano naman pananagot ng suppliers? Again, we supplier yung kanilang liabilities. Okay? One of which is if advance payment has been paid, pwede ho silang maging liable for swindling or
Hello?
at this time.
Edie Weng?
Hello?
Edie, medyo choppy po ang line.
Yes?
Hello?
Where?
Edie Weng?
Hello, is this better?
Yes po. Edie Weng, sorry to interrupt. Pwede pong pa-navigate po yung Zoom settings natin. May nagdoodle po kasi na participant sa screen. So,
alright. So how do you
more settings po. And then click disable annotation. Yes, na.
Annotation. Okay.
Yes,
But,
na.
I cannot delete this anymore now.
Oh, wait.
Okay, is that okay? All right. So let me proceed again. I hope the connection is better. Now, what are the other things that we have innovated on? One very, very important po, we will do crafting the rules. Narinig po namin at nabasa namin yung mga news about the produce of farmers na nasasayang dahil wala hong bumibili. No? Nasa probinsya po sila, hindi madala sa Manila. So, we included actually direct purchase of agricultural products from farmers. Part po kasi ng bayanihan procurement ang mga social amelioration measures. So, pwede rito pong pumasok yung distribute ng relief goods. So, mainam po, we buy directly from the farmers. No? And where does the innovation come in? Apart from including them, we've simplified the rules. We just need to know if they really are farmers. So meron tayong tinatawag na registry system for basic sectors in agriculture. So kung meron silang certification or ID, pwede ho nilang isubmit yun. Kung wala, pwede rin ho nilang isubmit ang application saying na sila ay farmers. Okay, yun lang ho ang dokumento na hinihingi namin. At the same time, we know that wala hong officially sa mga farmers. But we in government, we need to be able to document this. So the disbursement voucher being used by the agency, yun po ang magsiserve rather na proof not only of delivery but also of payment. And finally, in terms of the rules, we also allowed for purchase from various suppliers that will not constitute spring contract. No? Normally, dapat isang supplier lang for a single set of procurement projects. But we know, as I mentioned earlier, we have disruption of the supply chain because of COVID. So it's possible na yung ating volume na kinakailangan will not be supplied by just suppliers. So we allow that in the rules. Okay? What are the rules that we have that is actually now being used, and in fact even before, no, especially now na work from home ang karamihan ng ating mga as early as 2018 po actually, pinayagan na namin ng paggamit ng video conferencing and similar technologies. Ibig sabihin, ganito na ho, pwede na hong ganito ang meeting ng mga back. Hindi ho kailangang physically nandun siya. Okay? So again, hindi ho to kailangan under a state of calamity. Pwede ho normally kahit po after ng quarantine period at after po natin malagpasan itong COVID challenge natin, pwede ho ang video conferencing for back meetings. At the same time, we have also allowed long time ago the use of digital signature. Okay? We are endorsing the digital signature to the DICT because it uses the PKI, the public key infrastructure, which provides as well as physical documents have been made. Complement of this, we can say now, beginning to end, we can do online. We have the electronic submit. So,
Hello, Edie Weng.
yes.
Yes, choppy po ulit. Hello?
Is this better? Is this
Choppy pa rin po. Ganun pa rin po, ma'am.
better?
Okay, so I think ayusin lang po muna natin. Magkakaroon lang po tayo ng short break. Okay, I think magkakaroon tayo ng poll para lang icebreaker.
All right.
Yes. Hello?
Let's have a poll first,
Yes.
Pearl.
Yep.
Habang aayusin natin ang connection ni Edie Weng. Yan. So for our
Ah.
first question, kung attentive kayo, no?
Mm-mm.
Is the emergency procurement under the Bayanihan Act applicable to all types of procurement? Just click pack yes or it's not for me. It's a no for me. Ayan po.
Yan, dito tayo magkakaalaban kung talagang makikinig ang ating mga participants.
Yes. Again, is the emergency procurement under the Bayanihan Act applicable to all types of procurement?
So, yung mga nanonood via
Yes,
Facebook,
or-
pwede pa rin naman po kayong mag-participate. Click nyo lang po yung sagot nyo sa comment section.
Yes. It's answerable by a yes or a no, Pearl.
Yes. Pack yes or it's a no for me. Okay. It's a no for me.
So the answer, Pearl, is
It's a no for me.
it's a no. The answer is no.
Next. Next, Paul.
Our next poll, yes.
Sige, Joey.
Can procuring entities, or what we call PEs, directly negotiate with suppliers using emergency procurement under Bayanihan Act? Ayan, sa ating mga participants sa Zoom, can procuring entities directly negotiate with suppliers using emergency procurement under the Bayanihan Act? Is it a yes na yes or no sis? Again, for our viewers po sa Facebook, you can also answer a yes or a no. So most of you answered yes na yes, and the answer, Pearl, is
Yes na yes.
yes na yes. Pwede po.
Okay, I think pwede na tayong mag-start. Edie Weng. Are you ready na po?
Ayan.
Wait, I'll unmute.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, yan.
I hope this is better.
Yes, ma'am, it's better.
Okay, sige. Let me go back to, where did we end? I think electronic bid submission. All right. So, wait. Let me share my screen. And, okay, ayaw niyo mag-share. Share. Okay, so let's go to procurement. So as I mentioned earlier, pwede na natin ngayong makompleto yung ating bidding, no? You might ask, bakit wala pa ba tayong online bidding platform or e-bidding platform or e-reverse auction? Meron po actually tayong PhilJeps right now, pero operational lang ating online bidding function at e-reverse auction functionality ng PhilJeps. So while hindi pa po siya operational, we made it a point to be able to innovate on what we have. Ano po yung pwede nating gawin, no? Pwede po nating gamitin ngayon ng mga available na technology. So, pwede po tayong mag-allow na ngayon ng electronic bid submission, making sure only the integrity, confidentiality, authenticity of the bids. How do we do it? 3 simple steps, no? Nagre-require po tayo ng 2-factor security procedure. So, ibig sabihin, kailangan ho encrypted ang ating bid submission. Number 2, dahil encrypted po siya, kailangan ho siyang ma-decrypt later on upon opening date with a password or through the password to be protected. And third, kailangan ho na anong oras, kung anong araw isinabit yung bidding documents at kung may pagbabago bang ginawa. So, kailangan po
Edie Weng, hello?
are done by
Hello,
it
Edie
by...
Weng.
Hello?
Edie Weng, pwedeng paki-repeat po yung...
Sorry.
Yes,
So, saan siya lumabo? Was I able to finish with the audit trail of transactions? Did you hear that clearly? Audit trail of transactions. So that's the third requirement.
Yes, paulit na, pa-repeat na lang po, ma'am. Thank you po.
For the entire thing. Okay, so I mentioned earlier, there are only 3 requirements for electronic bid submission. Kailangan po merong 2-factor security procedure. Ang ibig lang pong sabihin yan, kailangan encrypted at decrypted po ang ating bid submission. Okay, alam mo na mga IT professionals yan. Paano ho natin siya ma-decrypt? Meron lang ho tayong password na ibibigay ng bidders themselves only on opening date and time. And kailangan hong maka-generate ng audit trail of transactions. Kailangan hong ma-record yung oras ng pag-submit ng bids at ma-print din po ito. Okay, so yun lang po yung mga requirements, and eventually, as I mentioned, hopefully po maayos na ho ang improvements ng aming online portal para ho magamit din po natin yun for online submission of bids. We are currently doing our beta testing pa lang po, kaya hindi pa ho namin siya ma-roll out. But hopefully soon ma-roll out po natin siya. Okay? And then of course, we are among the first to actually conduct webinars. Okay, last April, meron na ho kaming webinar. The first one we had was together with iProcure. We also had a webinar. So we're using online platforms, no, to be able to disseminate the information and explain, no, just like what I'm doing right now. We also had one exclusively for LGUs. We did this in collaboration with the local government academy. And then we just finished our second batch of online trainers kasi meron po tayong around 250 GPPB recognized trainers. Sila po yung tumutulong sa amin para ma-disseminate ang information on public procurement at makapag-lecture po sa inyo. We're on our third batch on June 19 and then June 26, our fourth batch. We also launched last April what we call our online Ugnayan series. So the first ugnayan that we had was with the Department of Agriculture. So ano po yung nangyayari sa online ugnayan? Meron ho kaming exclusive na webinar for agencies, no? So pwede ho nilang tanungin sa amin ang specific procurement issues nila or concern through the online Ugnayan series. Okay? What are the other platforms? I think at the center of this is the GPPB online portal. Okay, how do you access this? You go to www.gppbgovph.com. What is the government portal? We developed this to promote accountability and transparency in the conduct of emergency procurement under the Bayanihan Act. Okay, agencies will have to post the following procurement information on the portal, and this is accessible by all. So you might say, bakit kailangan ito? Well, when we were crafting the rules, we found out nga po na hindi makapag-post ang mga agencies sa PhilJets because it is designed for public bidding. So we are very concerned na simplified na yung procurement tools, mas mabilis, pero walang posting. So that's going to be very, very dangerous. Might be open or subject to abuse. So immediately we ask the help, technical assistance, to be able to develop GPPB online portal, at doon po para madali pong ma-post ng mga agencies ang kanilang mga awarded contracts kasi mas madali po at simple yung kanyang interface. Kasi naisip na ho namin na kung magpapasabit lang kami ng physical reports, baka tapos na yung taon, wala pa kami gagawa reporting sa Congress on how the emergency procurement was implemented. So mas maganda that we actually have the portal which is simple to use, readily available, at saka accessible by all. Spirit of transparency and public accountability. Okay? What are the other functions of the portal apart from the agencies posting on them the awarded contracts? Now, one of the important functions also of the portal is that the suppliers can actually post their product listings. Meron na po kaming ganyang feature sa portal. So how is this important? Then the procuring entities can therefore use that to be able to compare specifications and compare prices. So it's a form of market scoping na rin on the part of the procuring entities. Okay? At the same time, on the part of the public, kayo pong nakikinig, nanonood, hindi nyo po kailangan mag-register, punta lang po kayo doon sa website. Makikita nyo na po kung ano yung, magkano na bang ginagastos ng gobyerno, no? With respect to COVID, no, na ginamitan ng bayanihan procurement rules. So makikita po natin dyan, sino-sino ba itong mga suppliers na to na na-awardan ng kontrata? Makikita natin dyan. Okay? Magkano ba yung na-award sa pagbili ng isang item under the bayanihan procurement? Okay? Now, let me just give you some of the analytics that we have, data analytics that we have on the GPPB online portal. So since we went on live last April, we already have 1,651 users. Okay, and then based on the coverage of this report, it may be assumed that the website is being visited by 29 users per day. Okay, the portal is also frequently visited website in the number of the page views, and at the same time, a good identified user visits the website more than twice. Okay, visiting it or exploring almost 4 pages. Okay, every visit. So, yan po yung mga basic analytics that we have on the portal. What else can you actually see? So this one we're able to derive, okay, from the use of the portal. But this one you can also readily see in the portal. Very good news po sa amin that 74.16 of the users come from the Philippines. So ibig kong sabihin, may malaki din yung portion na from abroad. Most probably these are suppliers that are interested to join the bidding. Majority of the users that visit come from Quezon City and Cebu, which are incidentally the two top cities, the most number of visits. Okay? What else can we see sa portal? Makikita ho natin yung mga types of government entity that have registered. Again, maganda hong indication sa amin that majority or 47.6 are local government units. So ibig sabihin na nakakarating ho kami sa mga LGUs that they are really complying and posting their procurement contracts here. No? What else? You can even further disaggregate the information. How? What we did was compare the cities naman po that have registered against those that are registered sa ating PSA, or Philippine Statistics Authority. So makita natin sa NCR mababa ho ang compliance, no? Only 3 out of the 16. So 18.8. Pero sa CAR, 1 out of 2, so 50%. And in fact, maganda ho ang performance ng ating mga cities in the other regions, no? other than NCR. What else can we see sa portal? So far, you can see already the number of registered procuring entities and the number of contracts awarded. Okay. With respect to the total ABC posted, we have 4.6 billion pesos worth of ABC posted. Out of that, 3.9 billion na po ang na-award. Okay. So in terms of efficiency, if you compare posted and awarded against their ABC, that's about 84.7 efficiency, or a savings of about 700 million pesos compared to the approved budget posted. Now, ano ba yung mga top items or projects na nabili natin at na-post sa website, sa aming portal? So, makita ho natin, pinakamalaki ay supply and delivery of relief goods. Meron tayong rice seeds, medical supply, hygiene kits, relief goods again, thermal scanner, food, medical supplies, food commodities, and medical supplies. Okay, so the biggest item was 600 million pesos worth of award. Okay, in terms of the procuring entities, ang pinakamalaki hong posted contract award, total po to, Government of Taguig, 1.2 billion. Department of Agriculture, Western Visayas, 363 million, and so on and so forth. Okay? Pwede rin ho nating makita yung mga top suppliers. So we are showing this to you. Pwede nyo hong makita yan because recently we have already refined our portal para ho ma-identify yung aggregate amount and total for all, and the aggregate amount per procuring entity and per supplier. So I think that's it for me. I will end there. So before we open the forum, I just want to again reiterate that even after po the webinar, if you have questions, drop them to slido.com. Use hashtag government procurement PH. Open po kasi yung account namin na yan. No, wala ho siyang end date. So baka kung meron kayong questions na hindi nyo po maisip ngayon o hindi nyo maihabol, drop them lang po sa slido.com, hashtag government procurement PH. We will do our best. As I mentioned earlier, we issue FAQs, infographics. Pwede ho namin doon sagutin yan. At the same time, you can also go to the GTB government portal. That's gbgovph.com. Meron hong comment section doon. Gamitin po natin. And again, we'll do our best to be able to answer your question. So again, thank you so much for your kind attention in listening to me this afternoon. Back to you, Pearl. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, ED Weng, for that very detailed presentation. We really appreciate po you po dahil inaccept niyo po yung invitation namin. And we are very much surprised kasi sobrang maraming interested po talaga sa procurement. So thank you po ulit for gracing our webinar today. So friend Joey?
Yes, sige, ulitin natin mga kaibigan ng ating poll kanina para makita ko nakikinig kayo at naintindihan ninyo yung ating discussion ni ED Weng this afternoon. So please flash the poll, Kate, yes. Our first poll. Ayan, so our first poll is the emergency procurement under the Bayanihan Act applicable to all types of procurement.
So kanina, ang sinabi natin ay, it's a no for me ang answer. But
the answer actually is yes.
Yes. So ang ating explanation ay, it's a yes because but for items needed in order to mitigate, if not contain the transmission of COVID-19, to immediately mobilize assistance. So in the provision of basic necessities to families and individuals affected by the imposition of community quarantine, undertake measures that will prevent the overburdening of the healthcare system immediately and amply provide healthcare, including medical tests and treatments to COVID-19 patients, PUIs or PUMs, and undertake a program for recovery and rehabilitation. So para po dun sa mga sumagot ng PAC yes, congratulations po kasi maraming natutunan. Yes, nakikinig sila.
Yes. So can I just add something?
Sige
Yes,
po.
please.
The answer is really yes, correctly, all types. When you talk types po kasi sa procurement, there are only three. Goods, infra, and consulting. So, hindi ho nalimit ng batas ang types. Ang nalimit lang po niya yung specific items. So, ang sagot po is, it covers all, goods, infra, consulting, but kailangan po papasok yung goods, infra, consulting nyo dun sa items identified sa Bayanihan Act. Just to clarify.
Yan.
Thank you
po.
very much, Edie Weng, for that clarification. Now, Kate, let's move on to the second poll kanina. Our second poll is, can procuring entities directly negotiate with suppliers using emergency procurement under the Bayanihan Act? Most of you answered yes. The answer is actually yes. Yeah. Yes, provided that the prospective supplier complies to the technical, financial, and legal eligibility requirements of the procurement project. Yun po ang sagot. Yes po ang sagot.
Okay, so I think that would be all for now.
Yes.
Again, yung mga questions po ninyo sa ating mga speakers, kindly send them in via the chat box if you're watching via Zoom, or through the comment section if you're watching via FB Live. So, yan. Joey?
Okay, moving along, I'll now give you our reactor. She will react based on what Edie Weng discussed earlier. So we have Miss Carol Ilagan, who is a journalist and a journalism educator. She reports for and manages the editorial desk of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism and Investigative Nonprofit. Ms. Carol also teaches part-time at the University of Santo Tomas, De La Salle University, Manila, and the University of the Philippines, Diliman. So ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Ms. Carol. Ms. Carol, you have the floor po. Ms. Carol. Hello, Ms. Carol.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
You have the floor po for the reaction.
Okay. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, Attorney Ruiz, for the discussion, and thank you also to PCOO, the Right to Know Right Now Coalition, and HIVOS for giving us this opportunity. Ang aking pong reaction basically mas coming from the perspective po of a journalist working at a media nonprofit that has also been advocating for public transparency. So siguro po I'll begin my inputs with a bit of history. I don't have a presentation. I made notes which I can also share later po. Okay. There is no dearth of hard lessons in Philippine procurement or contracting. I use procurement and contracting interchangeably. From the Pea Amari and textbook scams in the 1990s, the fertilizer fund scam, and the NBN ZTE and the North Rail deals in the 2000s. More recently po, pork barrel scam in 2013, and in recent years, the contracts tied to former Tourism Secretary Juan Dateo, Solicitor General Jose Calida, and Senator Bongo. These cautionary tales, particularly those in the late 1990s, have prompted reforms such as the passage of RA 9184 or the Government Procurement Reform Act of 2003. This law consolidated all previous laws, rules, executive orders, and pronouncements related to procurement. The same law also created institutions and policies whose key role is to improve the integrity of procurement by making records available and allocating space as well for citizens to participate. GPPD, as we know po, for instance, oversees the implementation of the procurement law, while PhilGEPS, the Philippine Government Electronic Procurement System, serves as the primary source of procurement information. In the past decade, the Philippines became a founding member of the Open Government Partnership. So siguro po, familiar po kayo dito yung OGP. It's a multilateral initiative that aims to secure commitments from governments to promote transparency, empower citizens, and use new technologies to strengthen governance. Reforming the e-procurement system is one of the Philippine commitments is one of our country's commitments in its OGP action plan. In 2012, the Philippine government has also pledged to support the Open Contracting Partnership. So bagong term na naman po, no? May OGP, meron ding OCP, Open Contracting Partnership. This partnership emerged from a community of policy experts, leaders, and campaigners who believe that better access to open data and community engagement can help transform public goods and services. And months before the pandemic hit, actually po, ang PhilJeps has committed to work with stakeholders to identify contracting data that will be subjected to mandatory publication. By doing so, PhilJeps hopes to ensure that its modernized system will utilize the OCDS or the Open Contracting Data Standards. I can talk more about this later. I mentioned this timeline to track headways in procurement transparency and also recognize efforts at the local, national, and global levels to put a spotlight on government contracts. I also mentioned these developments to put in context two things. What do we mean when we say capturing transparency and procurement? Ang dami po kasing buzzwords, ano po, so transparency, governance, so yan po. Pangalawa po, how can this so-called transparency lead to better participation, better services, and better accountability amid a global health crisis? The ongoing efforts by PhilJeps and GPPB to continuously, proactively provide records in COVID-19. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me po?
Yes, Miss Carol, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, balikan ko po. The ongoing efforts by PhilJeps and GPPB to continuously and proactively provide key records in COVID-19 related procurement is commendable. In fact po, they are among the agencies that address our request for information even during the enhanced community quarantine when FOI operations were supposed to be suspended. These offices are able to do this, I believe, because of the decades-long efforts to make procurement more transparent. This means having systems and staff in place, and in the case of PhilJeps, the keyword is electronic. This makes them perhaps one of the more ready agencies to handle FOI requests, even in a work-from-home setup. So parang before and after COVID po, parang kami po sa PCIJ ay suki po kasi ng PhilJeps. So parang wala pong nagbago, even during the quarantine, we are able to get documents and data from PhilJeps. But I wish and hope that I could say the same for many other offices. Siyempre po, alam po naman natin na ang GPPB and PhilJeps, they also depend on documents uploaded by other agencies, offices, and local government units. And they also offer us a snapshot in the contracting process. Because the life cycle of a contract, as we know, does not just involve tender and award. So meron po tayong planning and implementation stages din po, which are both at the ends of the process. So planning, tender, award, contract, and implementation. So there are some facts that we need to face. Una po, 1 in every $3 spent by governments in the world is on a contract with either a supplier or a contractor or a consultant, according to data from the Open Contracting Partnership. In the Philippines, the national government has allocated, siguro po na-update na ito, at least $500 billion pesos to address the impact of COVID-19. As we know po, has killed more than 1,000 Filipinos and placed millions out of work because of the lockdown. This amount does not include emergency funds that local governments can tap, in addition to any revenue and savings that they may also decide to use for COVID-19 related expenses. And the amount does not also include billions in financial aid intended for COVID-19 response. The last count po na nabasa ko kahapon was at 6.5 billion pesos. There's huge money involved, and keeping an eye on it can be doubly difficult given quarantine constraints. The challenge to track this huge amount is heightened by the use of emergency procurement. Let me clarify po, Hindi naman po bagong konsepto as explained po later yung emergency procurement. It is warranted when it is warranted. In fact, our law, yung ating pong mga rules as discussed by Attorney Ruiz earlier, provides for measures on how emergency procurement can be applied. But the kind of emergency that we are experiencing now is a bit different. Different nga po kasi nabanggit ko kanina, marami po tayong restrictions given the quarantine. And hindi lang po ito nag-a-apply po ito sa lahat, to our government officials and employees, civil society representatives who maybe if we were in a more normal situation would be participating in the procurement process. The media also covering contracts and projects, as well as citizens as target beneficiaries of projects. In the face of crises and calamities, we understand the need to deliver goods and services fast. And in doing so, we entrust government and private entities of this role, and we also trust them that they will perform this role according to prescribed rules and standards. But crises and calamities have also provided ripe ground for various kinds of irregularities. The non-competitive nature of emergency procurement offers plenty of opportunities for corruption and inefficiency. Maari pong financial controls may be reduced while funding levels naman po ay tumataas. The pressure to act and to be seen as taking action, especially po dahil nagmamatyag po yung media, may pressure po na dapat umakto, may also tend to go against coordination between and among agencies. And here you may find overlapping and uncoordinated services. And maybe even purchases that may seem overpriced, hurried purchases. May mga balita po recently about may overpricing. These could all raise serious red flags. And when there is fire, flood, or even a pandemic, there is EPAL. Power dynamics, especially at the local level, also make crisis prone to politicking. So yun po, nabanggit ko po, maraming old and new challenges. So for journalists, sa amin po, in terms of verification, procurement records, often they provide a lead. But uncovering the full picture requires us to follow the money trail and actually track the entire process. Red flags may be detected at each stage of the contracting process, but checking out these leads, such as, say, for example, capacities of a supplier. Like kanina po, may pinakitang table si Attorney Ruiz po. Or maybe hints of corruption or conflicts of interest. These often require documents outside of PhilJEPs or GPPB. For example po, corporate records, business records. The Securities and Exchange Commission facility, yung facility po nila for accessing corporate records was closed during the ECQ. And even as it is operating now, getting documents from the SEC can be very expensive. Another important document that we check when we investigate contracts are SALNs. For over a year now, our long-standing request for asset records of government officials from the Office of the Ombudsman remains pending because the Ombudsman has yet to issue guidelines for releasing such documents. So wala pong lumalabas na SALN from the Ombudsman for more than a year now. And other branches of government has also become more restrictive about releasing asset records. More recently, yung Senate po, naghigpit na rin. Ang Congress for many years ay mahigpit na. These constraints can exacerbate pre-existing conditions in limited access to information and limited participation. So, maaring bureaucratic stalling or political blocking. So, where do we go from here? Siguro po, we would like to acknowledge that, for instance po, the PCOO is collating best practices from agencies who are able to respond to FOI requests even with quarantine restrictions. And as I understand po, a mobile application and a policy on digitizing records are also in the works. So sana po matuloy po itong mga plano na ito. For journalists and civil society, we can take advantage of records that are available as long as we do not lose sight of our right to full access to information. At the same time, collaboration has been a buzzword in recent years, and actually for good reason naman po. So we also acknowledge the efforts, we recognize the efforts being done by individuals and various groups and organizations that help us track and publish information about COVID-19 and the government's response to COVID-19. And as mentioned earlier, efforts to modernize PhilJeps are also in the works. So ano rin po ito, no? Malaki po yung potential dito because kung yung PhilJeps ay i-adapt yung open contracting standards, mas marami po tayong information na makikita na pwedeng makapture yung buong proseso ng contracting process. So hindi lang tender and award, but from planning up until implementation. So we hope that this pushes through despite changes kung sino man po ang nasa opisina or kung sino po ang nakaupo, kung sino yung bumubuo ng ating administrasyon. And finally, the public health crisis makes a strong case for the passage of an FOI law, especially at this time when access to information and seeking accountability is very important. So yun lamang po muna. Maraming salamat po sa pakikinig and I'd be happy to address your questions po later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carol, for that very in-depth discussion, providing us a glimpse of the work that you do as a journalist, as a media, and as CSOs po na you are a vanguard of the government transparency efforts. Okay, so Pearl,
Yes,
we'll now move on with our open forum.
Again, ulitin ko lang ulit yung magiging ayos natin during the open forum. So we will prioritize questions na na-lodge po in advance dun sa online training management system ni GPTV. So can we flash the questions? So number one, this is addressed para ito kay E.D. Weng. So during this situation, do we still need to canvass if we will procure something? E.D. Weng? Wait, you're on mute.
Yes, so thank you for the question. If you're going to use bayanihan procurement or emergency procurement, I would say you still need to canvass, but you have to adjust your canvassing methods. So in the past po, ang ginagawa ng ahensya, magka-canvas ng tatlo. I-divide nila yung amount na nakuha nila, that will be the basis of their ABC. Right now, there are avenues available. As I mentioned, pwede nyo bisitahin ang GPTV online portal. Meron ho tayong product listings ng mga items covered ng Bayanihan Act. So you can compare and contrast kung ano yung mga items na pino-provide or ino-offer ng mga suppliers. You can also check the PhilJeps, okay, and the virtual facility of the procurement service. You may also check DTI. Meron ho silang pinupost sa kanilang website of some of the suggested retail prices for some items. Recently po, dinagdag nila yung mga identified COVID items. And other regulatory offices po. Baka meron ho silang price data na pwede ninyong magamit. And of course, if wala pa rin po doon, you can readily go online, check online the website po ng mga suppliers or even call them po. So yes, you need to canvass because under emergency procurement, obviously kailangan po nating maibili siya on time. So kailangan din po natin umaksyon accordingly. All right.
Thank you very much, E.D. Weng. Second question po. How can we conduct a background check to the bidder given the constraint of COVID-19?
The same thing, as I said, sa Canvas. You have to adjust the way you canvas. For agencies na may mga suppliers po sila na dati na, okay? Dati na kung sumasali sa kanila. So, ibig sabihin, kapag post-qual na po kayo before, na-check nyo na kung talaga bang supplier siya, kung talaga bang may opisina siya, talaga bang nakapag-supply na siya ng ganitong produkto in yung past contracts niya. So, that's one way, no? Kung dati nyo na siya supplier. Kung hindi, you can do checking online. Check on the PhilJeps. Meron na siya mga posted contracts doon. Pwede i-check sa GPTV online portal. Kasi ang difference, hindi ho nakaka-post ng mga emergency procurement sa PhilJeps. Kasi ho, yung system niya requires certain registration and other limitations po. So mostly public bidding po ang covered ng PhilJEP. So yung mga emergency procurement po natin sa Bayanihan Act, required po na ma-post sa ating GPPB online portal. So we recognize the constraint, kaya nga ho, we leverage the available technology para ho makapag-background check tayo. Okay? One of the things you do is to
Hello, Idiweng.
yung mga hello?
Okay na po.
Yeah. So one of the things that you will have to check would be these legal requirements, no? So you can also try to do that online. Especially po yung mga mayor's permit, marami na ho tayong LGUs ngayon that uses the or the online facility, e-business facility, no, na introduce po ng DACP.
Thanks, Idiweng. Next question, please. How to conduct post-qualification during this COVID crisis to the LCB, especially we are in Mindanao and the company who joined the bidding is in Manila.
I think that was answered earlier, no? The validation of the supplier is actually the post-qualification stage. So you basically use available technology. Now, if you have, of course, if you if it's within the area, so ibig sabihin kung kahit naman po nung hindi tayo quarantine, we can do post-qual virtually. Kung ang supplier sa Mindanao tapos Manila yung ahensya, pwede ho tayong tumawag. Hindi ho natin kailangan pumunta sa Mindanao to check the supplier. So, same lang din ho ang gagawin nating post-qualification. Ano yung available online? Ngayon, kung within the Metro Manila area at kung kaya nyo naman pong mag-conduct ng actual or physical post-qualification, pwede pa rin naman ho yun. We are now already under general community quarantine. May mga limitasyon pa rin ho, pero kung kayang gawin ng ahensya, pwede niyo hong gamitin ang mga digital or online facilities available para ho tayo makapag-post-qualify.
Okay, next question.
For our next question, how do you monitor that transparency is always being implemented, especially during this time of crisis? Transparency mechanism po, Idiweng, ang kanyang gusto malaman.
As I explained earlier, we require the posting, no, of the awarded contract, no, and the details of the awarded contract. At yun po, minomonitor namin yan dun sa mga nagpo-post po sa aming portal. The other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, naka-rely po kami sa compliance ng mga ahensya. So what we do is we regularly issue advisory to them. Meron po kasi kaming directory of all procuring entities. So naka-register din po sila sa aming RSS. So they receive emails of issuances and advisory from us. So yun po yung ginagawa namin as a form of monitoring. No? Apart from that, kaya ho talagang minabuti namin to be able to really automate the reports that we get. We started this year po what we call a procurement diagnostics. It's a project of the GPPB TSO whereby base po dun sa mga reports na sinasubmit ng mga ahensya, gumagawa ko kami ng data analytics for them. Para po kami makapagbigay ng recommendation. Halimbawa ho, we can see from their semestral PMR if 10% pa lang po ng kanilang APP ang napoprocure nila. So we can already advise them on that. Bakit 10% pa lang? Kalahati na ng taon. So something like that po. No, that is what we call a procurement diagnostics na sinimulan po namin this year. So yun po yung aming mga monitoring ways for us to better monitor. And again, apart from the portal, are really moving towards automation of the reports. Para ho mas mabilis po namin makall yung mga kailangan namin.
Okay, for the last question na ating i-entertain from nagaling po sa OTMS link ni GPPB, how can CSOs and NGOs help in making the procurement process fair and open to all qualified bidders?
I guess as part of the public accountability I guess, mandate of CSOs. We know for a fact that CSOs may actually sit in as observers in all procurement in the procurement activities of agencies. So as part of that, yun po yung ay makikita ko na magagawa ng CSO to help us in ensuring a fair, competitive procurement process. How? Not only by being present, but also using the available facilities, no, the portal, the information available for them to submit reports. Kasi po yung mga umuupong observers natin, they have the responsibility to submit reports. Hindi lang ho sa ahensya, pwede ho sila mag-submit ng report sa GPPB at pwede rin ho sila mag-submit ng report sa Office of the Ombudsman. So yun po yung mga bagay that would help us ensure a fair and competitive bidding. Kasi if we have a third eye, so to speak, meron iba or third party na magmamatyag at titingin, no? Mas magiging mindful po tayo sa gobyerno and even the suppliers themselves, no, in order to be able to not only comply with the rules, but also respect the openness and the transparency and accountability provisions of the procurement law.
Thanks, Idiweng. Si Ms. Carol, maybe you would like to share something.
Sige po, siguro po maybe pwede kong i-address po itong huling tanong on the part naman po ng media po bilang kami naman po ay kumbaga nagtatrack din po ng procurement processes. Siguro po from our part, maari po sigurong mas palawakin pa yung reporting na hindi lang parang yung after the fact na or kumbaga nangyari na yung wrongdoing. Kaya po as I said earlier, may proseso po or yung may life cycle, yung isang kontrata or government project. So it would be really helpful if on the part po of journalists, we are able to parang kind of beat rin yung procurement. Kasi actually kahit anong ahensya po yung tingnan natin, kahit anong ahensya yung beat mo, may procurement na nagaganap. So, maganda kung matrack nga from planning, tender award, contract, and up until implementation and also audit. So, yun po siguro from our part. And at the same time, reporting plus also parang expand access to information. So, while we report on our stories, we also share experiences accessing information from government agencies. So hopefully, this can all help us parang mas ma-enable po tayo to get records na procurement related.
Thanks, Ms. Carol. We'll proceed na po sa mga questions na pumasok sa Zoom and sa Facebook. So first, from Pamela Verzola. So this is for Idiweng. So you've mentioned about overpricing. Acceptable po ba yung reason ng supplier na mataas din ang kuha nila? Dahil nga po sa nagkakaubusan, lalo na yung mga supplies related to COVID-19.
This is where the conduct of market scanning or scoping is important. So hindi pwedeng sinabi lang ho ng isang supplier. Kaya ho nang sabi ko kanina, punta ho kayo sa portal, check niyo yung product listing. Tama nga ba na ganito yung available na price sa merkado? Kasi kung yung supplier lang po ang nahirapan at masyadong mahal or mas mahal yung ino-offer niya, pwede ho kayong pumunta sa ibang supplier. So yun po yung kaya we emphasize the need for market scoping and scanning kahit to emergency tayo kasi marami naman po tayong available facilities right now unlike who before. Now we can check these things online.
Salamat po, Idiweng. Next question. Do we have a policy for framework agreement so that in the future, it will be easier to find potential suppliers?
Yes. Matagal na po nating pinilot ang framework agreement. And in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, 2018 or 2019, inadapt po ng GPPB na ma-implement po ang framework agreement as a form of contracting. Now, for those who are not familiar with the agreement, a framework agreement po ay pwede ho kasi kayong mangontrata sa isang supplier with a set of a volume of items and with a given amount. Pero meron ho kayong option na bumili o hindi bumili. So it's in a form of an option contract. So ibig kong sabihin, kung meron na pong ka-framework agreement na hotel for trainings GPPB, pwede ko hong i-opt na gamitin yung kontrata na yon pag kailangan ko na. So hindi ho ako tali within a given period, although may maximum period pa ang framework agreement. So pag kailangan ko na, tsaka ko siya i-opt. Maganda hong gamitin ng framework agreement sa mga pre-disaster preparation or preparatory activities. So nire-recommend po natin gamitin to sa mga relief goods. So pwede ho siyang gamitin ng DSWD. Magkaroon ho ng set of suppliers kasi kung meron kayong one or many, depende ho, can be one supplier, it can be many, depende ho doon sa arrangement ninyo. The framework agreement will be used by the DSWD, for instance, para kung meron na hong, kahit wala pa hong kalamidad, meron na silang kontrata, meron na silang option contract. At pag nagkaroon ng kalamidad, mag-order na lang po si DSWD. So we have framework agreement po in place already, even before this COVID.
Next question, Edie Weng. Is the procurement of gadgets for our learners in DepEd be considered an emergency procurement po?
As I mentioned po earlier, dalawang type po ang ating emergency procurement. Kung naka-identify po yan sa mga items na covered ng Bayanihan Act, you can use Bayanihan procurement. And then, if the conditions persist, and right now, meron pa rin po tayong state of calamity, kailangan nyo lang hong ma-justify bakit urgent, bakit emergency yung pagbili ninyo ng mga gadgets na yon. Okay? So in the first instance, Bayanihan procurement, it should be listed, no justification needed kasi that allows you to use the Bayanihan procurement rules. If you're going to use emergency procurement under 9184, just justify why it is emergently or urgently needed and kung ano doon sa tatlong conditions na minention ko kanina. And as I mentioned, currently we're still under a state of calamity.
Thank you, Edie Weng.
Next question, do we need to post to GPPB online portal our COVID-related procurements, even though the funds are not from the Bayanihan Act?
Ang kailangan niyo pong i-post doon are those using emergency procurement under the Bayanihan Act, regardless of the nature of the funding source. So the funding source, remember ho, hindi naman ho funding source ang Bayanihan Act. It only allow for the realignment of funds para ho magamit for COVID response. So whether it's an LGU fund, it's a GOCC fund, a national government fund, basta ho magpo-procure kayo under the Bayanihan procurement, kailangan niyo ho siyang i-post sa GPPB online portal.
That's clear.
Last question, Pearl.
Wait.
Paano daw po, Edie Weng, kung mas mura ang suppliers kesa sa DBM? I think private suppliers kesa sa government suppliers.
I think the question is, if you need to buy something that is available sa PS, I would suppose.
Yes.
Kaya sabi nilang government at merong mas mura sa supplier. The first thing po na kailangan ko pong i-mention or i-note sa inyo is pareho po ba yung technical specifications natin? Kasi po, yun po yung material whenever you compare, di ba? Kaya ho sabi natin, kailangan apples to apples. Wag ho natin i-compare yung item na nasa PS kung iba naman yung item na ino-offer ng supplier. So assuming so kung magkaiba ho yung technical specification, therefore, it depends on anong kailangan ninyo. Okay? Depende sa requirement ninyo. What do I mean by that? Minsan may mga special added features ang isang bagay. Kung kailangan nyo yung added features, then go for that. Kahit kung mas mahal siya, remember, we are not buying cheap in government po, ha? We are buying the most competitive price that is responsive to our needs. So, ibig sabihin, hindi natin kailangan bilhin yung pinakamura. Pero, importante na ma-identify natin ano yung specifications na kailangan natin. Ma-justify natin bakit kailangan high-tech or bakit kailangan mas high-performing ang aking laptop, hindi yung regular laptop lang. If ma-justify nyo, you may be able to buy that. So, that's the first thing I need to emphasize. Check the technical specs. Hindi yung mas mura tayo lagi. No? Baka mamaya yung mas mura, after 5 seconds, sira na or what have you. Now, assuming parehong-pareho po sila, I think you can justify going to your supplier kasi nga, we need to be able to ensure also the appropriate use of public funds. No? Basta ma-justify ninyo na parehong-pareho at mas mura dun sa supplier na makukuhanan ninyo. No, that is something also that we are currently studying on how to ensure na mas mura lagi sa PS because they are able to get bulk prices as compare po sa paisa-isang bili ng procuring entity.
Maraming salamat, ED Wing. By the way, may isang question na pumasok sa Zoom. When will the procurement of supplies be allowed from online sellers? So, Lazada or sa Shopee po.
When will the from online sellers? I don't exactly understand the question. Because even if you're an online seller and you participate in public bidding, pwede ho kayong ma-awardan ng kontrata. Okay. If you're asking when can we buy online, meron po tayong tinatawag na virtual store sa procurement service where you buy common use supplies online. Paki-check lang po siya, virtual store procurement service. Pwede ho kayong bumili ng common use supply items sa gobyerno online. No? But if the question is, online seller ako, pwede ba ako mag-participate sa public bidding? Pwede ho, basta you comply with the requirements. And as I mentioned earlier in my discussion, technically, hindi niyo ho kailangan lumabas ng bahay para makakompleto ng procurement. Pwede hong work from home, basta you make use of the technologies what we have insofar as video conferencing, digital signature, and electronic bid submission. Pwede po yan ngayon.
So time check muna tayo. It's now 3:28, and as much as we wanted to accommodate everyone's questions, we only have limited time. So for all unanswered questions, ito po, please go to the Slido account of GPPB. Just go to www.sli.do Slido and use the event code #governmentprocurementph. We will collate and then we will forward it to our respective speakers to address it accordingly. So sa mga hindi po nasagot yung mga katanungan o may mga katanungan pa kayo sa GPPB, please go to their Slido account and use the event code #governmentprocurementph. And then
So ongoing, yes, ongoing po yan even after this webinar. Si GPPB po, they will continuously answer your questions. So tandaan nyo lamang po, ang kanilang event code ay #governmentprocurementph.
Moving on, do you have any short message po, ED Weng?
I guess just to reiterate that it really, whether there's a calamity or not, we really need to be able to be vanguards of public funds. So if you're a procurement practitioner, it's really a challenge for us to be able to make sure that we are buying the most competitive, not the cheapest again, but the most competitive for the government. And at the same time, it's important for us also to be mindful of the changes in the rules that would help us. What we're trying to achieve in GPPB and TSO is that we want to shift the mindset from just compliance, because sometimes we tend to just comply with the rules. We're not looking at the overall planning and management. Just like what I said earlier regarding framework agreement. Kung meron ho tayo magandang pagpaplano, the framework agreement could actually be a good avenue or approach for us to use in times of calamities kasi nakakapag-prepare na tayo. It's just that right now it's very difficult. It really is a challenge for us to do ideal or perfect procurement planning. But there are a lot of developments right now that would help us do that. So ang hiling lang po namin is that we are very grateful. We have very good procurement practitioners. We have trainers that has been helping us. Ang hiling lang po namin is continue to support us. Do visit our social media accounts, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Hanapin nyo lang po Government Procurement PH. And then, again, questions, post them and drop them on our Slido. Yung OTMS po namin, nagsasarado po kasi siya after the end of the registration period. But the Slido is open po. Hopefully forever, para ho makapagsagot kami. And we also appreciate all of your comments and suggestions. Magtulungan po tayo for better government procurement. So maraming salamat po for this opportunity.
Thank you, ED Weng. Next, Ma'am Carol, do you have a short message naman po sa ating mga, sa lente naman po ng mga journalists, media, and transparency advocates?
So maraming salamat po ulit sa opportunity for giving us this opportunity to share our experience. So yun nga po, nabanggit ko kanina, medyo hindi ideal po yung ating sitwasyon. Tayo pong lahat, government, media, civil society, everybody po. So we understand na yun nga po, hindi magiging perfecto po lahat yung mga proseso. Pero yun nga po, sana po magtulungan din po tayo, but on the part of journalists po, syempre we will remain the same po, So I'm sure naiintindihan po nila yan. We will keep on reporting. We will proceed with our FOI requests and continue to tell stories. So yun na lamang po siguro. Ingat po sa ating lahat. Marami pong salamat.
Thank you, Edie Weng and Miss Carol. So on behalf of FOI Philippines, HIVOS and R2KRN, please accept this virtual certificate of appreciation for your invaluable sharing of knowledge and expertise during our In Focus webinar series 2, COVID-19 and its impact to the procurement process. We'll provide and send you po the actual certificate sa inyong opisina. Pearl?
So thank you po again sa ating mga resource speakers for accepting our invitation. I'm sure sa lahat po ng mga nanonood ngayon, we can all agree na sobrang dami naming natutunan, madaming points for reflection. So isang virtual applause or clap naman po dyan para sa mga nanonood sa Zoom and comment heart sa mga nanonood sa Facebook. Yan. So maraming salamat po sa inyong pagsubaybay. So to formally close our activity today, please welcome PCOO Assistant Secretary for Policy and Special Concerns and also the Freedom of Information Program Director, Attorney Christian R. Ablan. Ase, Chris, are you there? Hi, you're on mute, sir. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Pearl. Thank you, Joey. On behalf of the Freedom of Information Project Management Office, HIVOS Southeast, our speakers, Executive Director Attorney Lagan of PCIJ, for being with us this afternoon to impart their knowledge and insights on public procurement during this time of the COVID pandemic. I learned a lot during this webinar. I hope all those who participated this afternoon also learned a lot. My key takeaway is the availability of the GPPB portal, which is gppbgovph.com. Which was announced by Attorney Ruiz earlier. If you want to find out who are the suppliers, what are the awarded contracts, you can just log on to that particular website. I also take recognition of what Ms. Carol mentioned earlier about the need for every government agency to be as available like the PhilJeps and GPPB. We acknowledge po yung limitation ng records management across the bureaucracy, and we will be doing our best with the National Archives of the Philippines and the DICT to promote digital and electronic records management in the coming months or years, because we know that this pandemic is not the only one. There will be more in the future, and we really need to be accessible online. We really feel that the DBM, the GPPB, and PhilJeps, as well as the procurement service, to be our models in terms of being transparent in government, and we do hope that other government agencies will follow suit. I am glad more and more of our kababayans are interested in how public procurement works. With all the changes in the procurement policies and processes that the government has adopted under the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, discourses like this are important para ipaalam sa taong bayan where and how their money is being spent. More than 300 billion po ang nirealign o inallocate para po sa COVID response. At gaya nga ng sinabi ni Ms. Carol kanina, napaka-importante po para malaman natin kung saan napupunta ang pera ng bayan. I'm also pleased to have PCIJ as one of our partners in advocating and promoting transparency and accountability, especially during this time. They came out with a article written by Carol, and you can actually read it by following their Twitter, which is at PCIJDOT.org, PCIJ.org. Carol wrote a very beautiful, hindi naman beautiful, wrote a comprehensive report on the limitations of freedom of information. Again, we enjoin the call of all of our FOI partners that transparency matters now more than ever. Sana po ay hindi tayo mapagod na makialam, makilahok at makibahagi sa mga mahahalagang usapin katulad nito. Maraming salamat po muli sa inyong pagsubaybay. We did not expect we'd reach this number of participants. It is overwhelming. Albeit disappointing for me. The first webinar number 1, only had 70 participants. This webinar almost had 500 participants. So I think this is because of the topic as well as our speakers. Nung nakita nila na si Edie Weng po ang speaker at saka si Miss Carol, lahat po sila nag-log on. I will test this again on webinar number 5 kung yun talaga yun. I'd like to thank HIVO Southeast Asia. Special thanks to Ms. Bien for approving po the number of participants. Alam niyo po, limited po to 100 lang ang aming participants sa webinar na ito at nagpapasalamat kami sa HIVOS at na-increase to into 500 at umabot po ng I think 460 or 470. Pearl and Joey will be confirming the total number of participants later on. For the third installment of our In Focus series, it will be already on June 16, next Tuesday po. The topic will be about best budgeting and procurement practices at the local level. And we invited representatives from local government units to share their experiences in responding to the COVID-19 crisis. So magandang topic po uli yan sa coming Tuesday. Sana po maimbitahan po namin po uli kayo. Again, it is open to everyone. Please help spread the word. Pag hindi po kayo umabot sa Zoom, we will FB live stream po on our official Facebook page, FOI Philippines. Hikayatin po natin ang ating mga LGUs na mag-participate para malaman kung ano-ano po ang transparency initiatives that we can implement at the local level and how we can help as part of civil society. Muli po, mula po sa HIVOS, FOI Philippines, pati na rin po sa Right to Know Right Now Coalition. Maraming salamat po sa pag-participate at sa ating mga speakers, Edie Weng at Miss Carol, maraming salamat po for giving almost 2 hours of your time to discuss procurement during the time of COVID. Back to you, Pearl and Joey.
Okay, magkakaroon lamang po tayo ng virtual photo op. So, yung ating mga participants, pwedeng i-open muna po nila saglit ang kanilang mga video camera. So, Miss Kate, ang ating tech, siya po yung mag-account. Are you there?
Para may means of validation po tayo
Yes.
na kayo po ay nag-participate sa ating Zoom.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay guys, thank you.
Ayan.
Thank you very much. At dito po nagtatapos ang ating talakayan ngayong hapon. Konting reminders lamang po. E-certificates will be provided to all our participants, but give us time to collate everything in one Google Drive dahil po marami po tayo ngayon participants. No? Meron din po kaming isi-send the post-event evaluation form both for FOI and GPPB. So dalawang evaluation form po ang kailangan nating sagutin. So make sure to check your emails every now and then. Pearl?
Yes, and hanggang sa susunod po muli, kita-kits po tayo sa June 16, next Tuesday. So i-follow lamang po ang aming social media pages para maging updated po tayo sa mga ibang details po. No? So thank you everyone and please stay healthy and be safe.
Thank you everyone. Salamat po. Thank you. Thank you, Pearl.
Thank you, Miss Carol.
bayan na malaman ang katapatan nitong ating pamahalaan. Sa tagal ng panahon di malaman kung bakit nga ba ngayon lamang nagkatapang na may sa katuparan to. Hindi na pwedeng malay ko pa dyan, at di na pwedeng walang pananagutan. Buksan na ang pinto, buksan pati libro, at nang malaman ng bayan, huwag mong sabihing malay ko. Alamin mo ang totoo. Malaya ka na ngayong malaman ang kasaysayan ng bayan, at di ka na maniniwala sa sabi-sabit haka-haka. Mas malaya ka kung may malay ka. Mas malaya ka kung may malay ka. Tanong ka, alamin mo, alamin natin kung tunay nga ang pagbabago. Hakbang tungo sa tunay na progreso. Ito ay para sa lahat, di lang sa nakaaangat. Kaya tayo'y makialam para sa ating bayan. Hindi na pwedeng malay ko pa dyan, at di na pwedeng walang pananagutan. Buksan na ang pinto, buksan pati libro, at nang malaman ng bayan, huwag mong sabihing malay ko. Alamin mo ang totoo. Malaya ka na ngayong malaman ang kasaysayan ng bayan, at di ka na maniniwala sa sabi-sabit haka-haka. Mas malaya ka kung may malay ka. Mas malaya